Hi, you guys. Welcome back to my channel, Latina Plants. My name is Jackie. Today, we're going to uppot these variegated African violets. I have 5 of them that are super ready for a next size up. They're looking really beautiful and variegated. The rule of thumb is if the leaves are about a quarter size that you can up pot them. And so these are well over a quarter size. My husband and I are working on 3D printed pots. I'm going to up pot them to this clear pot here that I have used my fuse tool to burn some holes, and I'm using an acrylic yarn, and I'm going to create a self-watering setup here with the cup inside of a cup and the yarn. The yarn I picked up at Dollar Tree, but I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. The taller cup I picked up at Walmart, and the smaller cup I picked up on Amazon. And so here I wanted to show you my African violet soil. The soil I like to use is the Espoma Organic African Violet soil, and I use the perlite from Lowe's, the organic perlite from Lowe's, and I also put in some diatomaceous earth, and I mix that up. The ratio that I use of the African violet soil and perlite is 50-50, just to make sure it's very well draining. And so let's go ahead and uppot this African violet. I'm going to try to do the minimal disturbance to the roots. I really just want to plop that in and fill around it without causing any shock to the roots. I found this African violet at Lowe's at my mom's location one time, and it was a result of looking in the boxes that they had. I was super excited. Unfortunately, my mother plant did not make it. I overwatered her. This is why I'm changing to the wick system, because that has been helping me with watering my African violets so I don't overwater them, because it's hard to tell when they need water. Sometimes I would let them dry out too long. And African violets kind of like to stay moist, so I figured I'd try this wicking system, and it's been working for my African violets in my personal collection. And so I figured it'd be easier to keep all the babies well watered, and that's why I'm doing the wicking system. So you want to do a nice layer on the bottom and pull the wick up above that layer, and make sure that your wick reaches the bottom of your cup. And I like to loop the wick so that it covers a bigger surface of the soil, and make sure that the wick reaches the bottom here. Now we can go ahead and gently pull her out of her small pot here. These small pots also had drainage holes, and I put them on a tray to water from the bottom. That made it easier for me to keep the seedlings or the propagations of these babies watered. All I had to do when it comes to it is check and see when they need water, and when they do, I filled the tray up about an inch with water and let them soak the water that they need. And so now we're just going to backfill, making sure to try not to get soil on the leaves. Not a big deal. We'll remove it later on. I'll show you how I remove the soil from these fuzzy, furry leaves. Make sure you tamp down and tap your pot as you're adding the substrate to make sure there are no air pockets, because African violets have really fine roots and you don't want any air pockets. They like to stay nice and moist, but they don't like their soil too compacted, so make sure that you keep it airy enough with the perlite, and make sure you don't tamp down your soil too much. When you're uppotting your African violets, make sure your crown is above the substrate so that you can avoid crown rotting your African violet when you water. So for the first one, I wanted to show you in real time how I repot it. And the next couple for the other four, I will speed you guys through it. Finding this African violet was what sparked my interest in them. And yeah, ever since I've been collecting them, I have learned a lot from them. I do recommend, if you're a beginner collector of the African violets, that you try with the store or the big box African violets first. Make sure that you have systemic on hand as well as some insecticidal soap. When you treat your African violets, as soon as you get them, you should spray them down with insecticidal soap. Remove any of the blooms. I know you don't have to do that, but there are pests like thrips that feed on the pollen from the blooms. So if your African violet has thrips, it would be a smart thing to remove the blooms. Or if they have any mites as well. So here she is, all potted up. I'm going to go ahead and put her in her cup, and we will water all of them at the same time at the end. Also, I would recommend as well to pick up, when you pick up your African violet, you should get a leaf cutting and start propagating. In case the mother plant doesn't make it, you have some propagations to restart her. And typically, the propagations will do better than a full grown plant that needs to acclimate to your environment. I also recommend you quarantining your plants when you get them at first as well. So I'm going to list these African violets on my PalmStreet. If you guys have not followed me on my PalmStreet yet, go ahead and check them out. I will leave the referral code as well as my PalmStreet link down below in the description box. You guys can check that out if you're interested in buying any plants from me. I appreciate anyone who does and the support. All the money goes back into my business as well as my YouTube channel. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that has bought plants from me and shown me some love and support. I really appreciate it. Also, I will link down below in the description box all of the things that I use for my African violets or that I use for my houseplants in general from Amazon in case you guys can't find it in your local area. Yeah, I get a little kickback at no cost to you guys if you use my link. So, yeah, that as well. I really appreciate if you guys do that to show me some love and support. So now going on with the rest of the repot here. I think I covered almost everything that I wanted to talk about with the African violets. They are pretty beautiful, rewarding plants to grow and have in your collection. You just have to be super careful, is what I learned when you buy them, because they can come with pests. And the pests that they come with, you normally can't see them with the naked eye until your plant is kind of already going downhill. They are super easy, especially if you're in underwater, because, well, not really underwatering or overwater, but you just have to be mindful of your watering with your African violets. Try to bottom water them so that they don't get crown rot, and make sure that you don't like leave them sitting in water overnight or anything like that, because that's when you can get some root rot. I also wanted to tell you guys that the yarn is acrylic that I use from Dollar Tree. I also burn the ends to minimize the yarn from fraying. In a minute here, I will show you what the yarn looks like. And I found that this yarn works really well for wicking. And the reason that I'm using an acrylic yarn is because the cotton ones kind of decompose and break down and get all this algae and stuff like that. And so here I'm showing you that I just use a lighter and I burn the ends, but I'm not actually burning it because I already did all the prepping for that, you guys. Typically, people will soak their yarns ahead of time. They also like to moisten the soil as well. I do not do that. This soil was already a little damp to begin with, so I didn't need to moisten it. But I do top water the plant for after I repot them, because I want to make sure that the soil settles down and that all the roots are getting some water, especially because the wick was already dry and the soil was semi-dry. So I don't want the plant to sit too long without any moisture. So I do go ahead and top water when I first repot these. If you guys have any tips on African violets, please leave them down below. You guys, I would really appreciate it. And now here I'm showing you how I'm using the squeezy bottle, and I'm going along the edge of the pot, being very careful not to get to the crown of the plant. And don't worry about the center of the pot getting enough moisture because the soil will wick into that area. Just make sure that your soil is saturated well around the plant, and also fill up the cup reservoir so that your wick can start to work. I checked all these plants the next day and they were all doing well. The soil was nice and moist and the wicking action was working. I tested this out on 2 African violets first. Mona received one already, and someone else bought the other one on PalmStreet. Mona is also on PalmStreet, you guys, so I think you guys should go ahead and check her out. She sells a lot of beautiful Hoyas if you're interested in Hoyas. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. Also, click on that bell to get notified every time I upload a video. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, as well as on PalmStreet, you guys. I like to use a soft paintbrush to just dust off any soil that may have gotten on the leaves. And aren't they so beautiful? I love these African violets. It's going to be very hard to give them up. Don't forget to check out my PalmStreet if you're interested in snagging one of these beautiful variegated African violets. Bye!